post your questions for in the chat. I will relay them to him so you can get answers, feedback, advice, and insights. Okay. Let me just make sure that we're good on LinkedIn because that's always the slow one and the most important one, actually. Believe it or not. Everyone paying attention, LinkedIn's awesome.
Yeah.
For this at least. Okay. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Wonderful. The meeting's now, everyone. Andrew, would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Gary. So, Andrew Fox, I run a company called Foxy Digital. I swear it is not an ego driven name. It is a name where essentially throughout my entire career, people start with Andrew, then it kind of goes to Fox and then Foxy. It just is a very natural progression. So that's how people know me. So that's why that's the name of the company. But that being said, I've been in marketing and advertising for the last 25 years. I started my career at a company called Overture, which was the incubator for paid search. So before Google was even around, we were doing pay-per-click advertising in a very simple way where people would just bid up against their competitors and kind of force them in or out of the landscape, which was a very lucrative model. And then Google came in and said, we could do this way better. And they added relevancy, they added quality scores, they added landing pages, they added all sorts of different elements to the mix. And they essentially just started to crush the results. And so we at Yahoo really turned to service. And we essentially were, solution oriented individuals. We did not have an ego, we were not arrogant. And so we were really able to work with our clients, mostly Fortune 100 brands, and really help them develop really complex and also performance driven search portfolios of keywords and the like. So, incredibly effective solution. I was in New York for, shipped me to New York for about, 3 years. Spent some time building that team there. Some of the folks that have been on my team are the person who runs all of ecom at Pepsi, and a bunch of others throughout the years, and certainly would never take credit for their careers. They're incredibly smart and engaged individuals and brilliant in their own right. And so I was just super lucky to have them as a part of the crew that kind of started that entire journey way back in the day. So that was fun. And then after Yahoo, I moved over to a company called Eventful, where we were doing, hundreds of thousands of dollars when I joined, and then built them to, over 7 million, sold it to CBS and Paramount Global. And then from there, I moved over to personalized video advertising. So we were rendering hundreds of thousands of videos per advertising campaign. And essentially, as an example, the last game that you would see if you were browsing the PlayStation Store, the last game that you would see in the store would be the first game that would show up in a video anywhere where you were on the web, which is a really great magnet to get them back to the store to purchase. And then after that, I jumped over into influencer marketing and was kind of on the cutting edge of that for about 7 years before I started this company. And what we do at this company is we are a performance marketing organization, and we help professional services like law firms and medical practices and financial advisors and the folks really where the rubber meets the road. We help them get more customers, more cases, more call volume, all of the various metrics that matter. And we do that through a combination of content and media. And that is really where we're focused now. I wanted to develop this company very specifically because the corporate world just was, becoming just a little bit too focused on their own bottom line. and I really wanted to focus more on clients and their success. And I felt like doing it this way was the best way to do it. And we've built an incredible team. They're insanely talented, and they're people that I've worked with for 30 years. So very, very excited about the work that we're doing. And I'm excited to be here, Gary. Like, happy to answer questions. And my career spans search, display, sponsorships, influencer marketing, content creation. So whatever people have and they want answers to, I'm happy to jump in and answer them.
It's amazing. And yeah, you already touched on like a million jumping off points for really cool bits of insight and just like, yeah, understanding about how to go about moving forward to connect with the right people and persuade them to try your product or service and ultimately like connect with you as a brand, right? So like everyone that's watching that have tuned in now, if you're not on Startmata, post questions in the text chat. I will take those questions. I will relay them. I will read them, and then Andrew will answer them. Don't be shy. There's not a stupid question. Everyone gets to learn together. Your question might be something that no one's ever heard about or thought about, and the answer could be incredibly enlightening for everyone. And if you're not sure how to ask a question, but you're still facing challenges or fears regarding building a career in marketing, advertising, or an agency, or just building your own company and figuring out how to approach marketing and advertising, content, any of that stuff, just share what you're trying to accomplish, what your fears, challenges might be, and I'm sure Andrew will be able to help you out. While we wait for some questions to come in from the community. Oh, and then also, yeah, you over here on Startmata, feel free to raise your hand or let me know in chat if you want to come up on stage and speak directly to Andrew. I can do that for you. All right, that said, while we're waiting for people to not be shy, Andrew, I'm curious because every day I'm seeing people rushing to start spending money in marketing and they don't understand who they are targeting and how those people are the right people. They think that, like I was talking to an early stage founder yesterday, they're like, well, I'm a niche. I'm focused on people that are in the beauty industry. And it's like, it's not very specific, right? That could be anyone. And I'm curious, before you start targeting people, what do you need to do for yourself to know who to match with? And oftentimes I'm thinking about, like a mission statement, a culture statement, value statement, things like that. But how else can you really identify what makes you unique to then match make to the right customers? What's your process for doing that?
Yeah. First of all, it's a really good question because things branch off of what you just said, right? Starting with your mission statement, starting with the values that you have as an organization, right? Our values are honesty, integrity, and transparency, right? We don't mark up media. So like understanding who you are as a person, who your company is as an identity, I think is the very first thing that you need to figure out. And then once you have that figured out, it's what are you selling, right? Who are you going after? What message are you looking to deliver? And start just throwing things out, putting things on a whiteboard, those types of things. But even before you do that, it's who's your customer? But really specifically, who's your customer, right? Not just somebody in the beauty industry. Is it the marketing managers at small to medium-sized beauty companies? Is it the CMO of Sephora? Is it, right? Like, who exactly are you looking to target? And even before that, you identify what is your goal and objective. So do not run media, do not run advertising, do not post content. Don't do those things yet until you figure that stuff out. Once you start to figure those things out, then I would always start with content. The content really is king in terms of uniqueness, in terms of identity, in terms of developing a message, delivering your message, testing a message. I'm a very big believer in testing and understanding what's actually resonating try to get as much feedback as you can. I always look at feedback as a gift. So, ask your friends, ask your colleagues and your, business associates, ask them if they understand it, um, and if it resonates, right? Like ask them to be, hey, you are, marketing manager at a beauty company. Does this message resonate with you? Um, Call people that you're looking to target and say, hey, look, I'm looking for some advice on this particular piece of thing. And so what do you think of this? Like, does this resonate with you? Like, what would you change? What would you adjust? People are always happy to lend advice and lend an ear. I think that they're more willing to do that um, than anything else. And quite frankly, it could be even a lead magnet for you, right? So as you are having these conversations, you can say, well, it's interesting that you say that because XYZ, right? And so it's it really is an exercise in understanding who you are, understanding who your audience is, and then understanding what do you want to say to them and how do you want to say it. Start with content, test a few things out, and then when you're ready, then you start with small pieces of advertising. And I always would start with social. It is where everybody is right now. And then I would also work on your own site and content so that way you start to get indexed in the LLMs and in these large language models like ChatGPT and Claude and that type of stuff. And it's really kind of based on content and just start asking questions in Google, things that are related to your business, and you'll start to see what comes up. And if what comes up is not you, then you should probably write an article about the question that you just asked and put that on your site, right? As an FAQ or as a blog post or something like that. So that way these models will start to actually index you and get you into those results. So it's a good way to start, at least.
I think it's amazing what you just said. Again, there's a few different things that are so invaluable for people to understand and just hear. Like the fact that you would call up someone that you're trying to connect with, right, as a sales lead, but leverage them as a mentor first and just ask them, hey, can I get some feedback on this? I'm working on this. Because I say this all the time for fundraising as well with investors. You don't want to just go out there and start pitching people that you don't know. Seek them out as mentors. See if you can, like, get some feedback on your deck, get some feedback on your strategies, the plans that you're trying to, enact to work towards building a business, a real business, and see if you can build a relationship there, if there's a good vibe there. Because you're going to be in like a long-term relationship with that person anyway, as a business partner. And the same's true for like, a customer, a client. The ideal situation is a long-term relationship, right? So you want to make sure there's a good rapport. And you end up pitching them without pitching them, right? Because you're showing them what you do and you're empowering them to give you that feedback. That's like,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah. Like it's the best kind of feedback because it's directly from your customer, right? And so even if you don't end up selling anything to them, right, you're actually getting some really good advice. But leverage it like Gary was saying. Like it's, if you can actually turn that into a sale without sounding salesy or pitchy, right? Like that's not what you want. You really do want to be authentic and really try to get as much good advice as you possibly can. And if it does end up moving in that direction, all the better.
The other kind of bit that I'm realizing as well, thinking about what you just shared, is that person might not be the right person that you want to be targeting with your marketing and advertising. Like you said, maybe it's like, like the CFO versus the CEO or something else, right? But you're meeting with, say, the CEO, and they're telling you, oh, you got to talk to the CFO. They're the ones that like would be locked in on this and make the decision. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, we were targeting the wrong person, the wrong role in the company. Okay, that's amazing. Now we know how to craft that message a little bit differently. When you're seeking out the feedback, to build on this before we jump into Sharad's question and we start to like hopefully get some more. Don't be shy. Post some more questions, people.
Those questions.
When you do seek that feedback, how often are you going to them? So let's say it's content that you want to like, get feedback on. How early are you seeking that feedback? Are you going with like a script maybe or storyboards with, maybe like a more simplified version of like a clickable prototype, like a little like clickable comic strip to kind of like animate in a way, like a few key screens from the storyboards instead of doing the full production first to get some of that early feedback? Like, how do you approach that?
I always think wireframes are a great way to go. I mean, it's a little bit old school, right? But like, I think at the end of the day, it's don't show the full thing yet, right? Even potentially not even showing anything, right? And just having a conversation and saying, hey, I'm creating something. I can show you a couple things, but I'd rather kind of walk you through it and just kind of get your thoughts on it. Do you think that this would work or not? And then get their permission to come back, right? It's like get the feedback that you're looking for from that initial conversation and say, hey, would you mind if I reach back out like after I build this initial first step and kind of get your thoughts on what this looks like, and if you feel like this would resonate with you or your audience or whoever it is that you're targeting. And people are usually like, oh yeah, absolutely, like not a problem, like please feel free to reach out. And so it becomes an exercise also in relationship building. Look, sales honestly is about relationships and timing, because you need to be in the right place at the right time in order to sell something that somebody really needs, right? Can you create urgency for that need? Absolutely. And so those are things that you can do to kind of juice the sale. But if they're not ready to buy, then they're not going to buy. So the best thing to do is to keep them warm. And you can do that in so many different ways. Once you're past this sort of build stage and you're actually targeting people, start collecting email addresses as much as you possibly can from individuals. Make sure you get their consent clearly, right? You want to make sure that we're always compliant. But like building that list and creating drip campaigns where you're seeding information around your product or service, that's incredibly valuable and important. But be careful too, because you don't want to over frequency somebody, meaning do not send them an email every single day. They will literally turn you off. So don't do that, right? Like, but once a week, once every 2 weeks, understand what your cadence is, understand what your subscribe rate looks like, understand what your open rate looks like. Everything is and should be data driven. So making sure that you have GA4 on the back end of your website, making sure that you understand where your clicks are coming from, understanding who's visiting your site and why, or if they're not visiting your site or nobody's visiting your site, maybe there's an issue there. Have you updated your Google profile? Have you updated your, Apple Maps? There are things that you can do in order to get exposure and visibility that don't cost literally anything, but make a huge impact. And those Google Map listings are invaluable, and the local service listings are invaluable because they come up right under, when you're searching, right under the LLM, it comes up right under Gemini. It's like Gemini map, right? And so do those things initially, at least. You start getting feedback, collecting email addresses, and then sending out content.
I love it. There's another question to circle back to, but real quick before we move on to Sharad and now Emu's questions though, I want to hear your experiences with this when you're starting to get that feedback very early on, maybe when you don't even have something to show, but then you're able to revisit them and show them what you've done since you last like got feedback from them and how you applied that, and then come back again. How do you see that playing into the relationship being developed further in terms of the trust and excitement between the two of you, for you as like the founder, the creator, the company, in terms of what it's capable of doing and what it's trying to do and how it's getting closer to, accomplishing that. And then just the overall kind of like, you know, community aspect of that, because you're, engaging with a person and empowering them through their opinions, their insights, who they are and their life experiences, in helping you learn and grow from them. So I'm curious, like how have you seen that play out, and the impact of that over time?
So, like I mentioned earlier, feedback is the most incredible way to engage with somebody because people are always happy to lend an ear and advice. And the more that you engage with them, as long as it's not, uh, as long as you're not imposing, right? Like you always want to ask, right? You always want to say, hey, is it okay if I'd be really grateful for if you're cool with it, right? Like those types of things are, they go further than you would even think because people really do like to be asked. And I think once you start to develop that relationship, then you can, I mean, I would extend it if they're in your city or if they're in your local area. I would extend it. Hey, do you mind if I buy you lunch? Right? Like go out, take them out a little bit, build that relationship and say, okay, here's your feedback. Here's sort of what I've implemented. Who else should I be talking to about this? And get their advice, get their feedback on the next person. And it's not about sales, right? It's still about gathering feedback and it's still about improving and it's still about testing and figuring out what it is that you're trying to do and what it is you're trying to sell. But I think at the same time, it's building those relationships. And now you have like a repository and you're building that repository of trusted mentors and trusted friends who are on your side and want you to win. Right. And you may even find somebody who's like, hey, I'd like to do this with you. Right. And if that's the case, now you also have a partner. Right. And maybe there's an equity play, maybe there's something else in the mix that you could potentially offer. Um, Sales is the hardest part of the entire picture. And so the more help you have on that side, the easier it is to get it to go far and wide because people talk to people, and then word of mouth spreads. It's not just about advertising, it's about, hate to say it, but it's about influencer, right? An influencer is not just that person on social, that person on TikTok, or that person who's got 1 million followers, right? Influencer marketing has been around since the dawn of time. It is literally word of mouth marketing going, I just saw this dentist. They are really incredible. You should go see them, right? That is influencer marketing because you trust what your friends have to say. And it's just expanded into the social sphere. And it's been, an incredibly uh, lucrative channel where you now have content creators who are going out and making content around specific products and services that they believe in. But that's the best way to kind of start, at least, is getting people on your side, building that, that group of individuals who really believe in what you're doing. And some may not, by the way, like, and that's okay, right? Like, it's also about developing a thick skin at the same time. It's like not everybody believes in what you're going to be doing. So understanding that, opinions are like, everybody has one. So it's take what you want and leave the rest, honestly. And so that, I mean, that's honestly what I would say in terms of like building that community of trusted sources. and then leveraging them as you need them, as long as you have their advice and their permission to do so.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. And again, like it's about the long-term goals that you're trying to accomplish. And part of that too, realizing who doesn't believe or who's not really like interested, that's helping you cut through, this wider gamut of potential people that you're trying to sell to and recognize, wait. For where we are today at this stage with our product, our services, our brand, and our, the limited resources we have to focus on a certain type of person, well, we know not to focus on that type of person, right? So this people that fall within this demographic, but more importantly, these psychographics are more of a distraction for us right now. So let's focus on the ones who are going to be most interested in learning about us, excited to engage with us, get the most enjoyment and benefits and value out of what we're providing them to providing to them, and thus the most value. So they become, those die-hard, brand ambassadors essentially, right? So I love that. Let's jump to Sharad, who asks, "What's the best software to track traffic? When you have paid ads, as long as you make more money than you spend, should you jump should you dump money into it? When do paid ads tend to break or not be worth it?" So one's like the diminishing returns for that.
That is all data science, right? So, I mean, in terms of software tracking, there's a million different tracking systems. I mean, use Google Search Console, or use, I mean, literally there's a million of them. Like, choose the one that you feel is the most relevant to your vertical and to your business, from a traffic source perspective. It also depends upon your budget, right? If it's free, use it, right? But ultimately, diminishing returns are insanely important. And yes, if you're making more than you're spending, certainly continue to increase that and see where you're getting diminishing returns. As soon as you start to equalize, like you're not making as much as you're spending, that's your diminishing returns point. And so that's when you need to switch things up and go, okay, maybe I need a creative refresh, or maybe I need different kinds of ads, or maybe I need to shoot new content or post new content or do something different, because there is something called ad fatigue. It happens. It's when people get served the same ad over and over and over again, they just get super tired of it. And so your diminishing returns may be that. It may not be that your ads are not working. It may be that your audience is getting tired of looking at the same thing over and over and over again. Now, there is something to be said about frequency, right? And understanding how many touches it takes in order to get somebody into your funnel and actually buying something, or calling you, or doing a very specific service, if you will, right? So understanding what that number is, how many times you've frequencied somebody to get them into the funnel, to get them to do something, that is a really important number to know. So that way you can set frequency caps on your ads. So that way, okay, I don't want to message this person more than once a week. And it takes 6 weeks to get them into and back to the site and back into the thing and doing what you want them to do. So that's what I would say about that, very specifically from a diminishing returns point of view. It's when things start to equalize, when you're paying as much as you're getting back, that's your equalization point. And that's really when you need to start changing things up, testing new things, doing A/B testing, All of the platforms, by the way, will provide you with reporting. So all of the paid platforms will share with you essentially what's working and what's not working. Like Meta does a really good job at this, where you upload, let's say, 5 pieces of creative into an ad group. They will actually rotate your creative and find the best performing ones. Now, you may reach a point of diminishing returns in that particular ad group, and so you have to start changing things up. But and when you do that, things then back up into a learning phase, and you go back into equal rotation until it finds the best performing one. So there are tips and tricks and ways to operate each individual platform, or each individual paid platform, I would say. But depending upon your budget, depending upon what you're looking to invest, as well as what you're returning, and is it enough? Right? So sometimes a 2-to-1 return is enough. Sometimes it has to be a 5-to-1 return because you have investments in 17 other areas that you need to cover. So your ads need to cover all of that investment, as well as, just turning a profit. So factoring all of that in, I think it's really important to have, if you're at a paid stage, to have a finance person on your side. Whether it's an experienced bookkeeper, or whether it's a finance advisor, somebody really looking at the numbers to help you kind of decipher. That's really where a good team comes into place. Even a great analytics person, or a data person, or somebody who does integrations and systems and those types of things is somebody that's invaluable to have. And you can find these people, find them on Fiverr. You can, there's a lot of different platforms with which to find individuals. And but I would always get references and talk to people and get examples of their work, and really vet people as much as you can, I would say, too.
Yeah, I'm curious about like the vetting, but we can jump to that a little bit later. But building on this initial question, what are some mistakes you see people make in regards to the analytics and metrics that they're looking at and valuing ahead of other ones, right? Where essentially what I'm asking is, where do you see people putting too much focus on the vanity metrics, and what are those versus the substantial metrics that are helping you better contextualize whether something's working or not?
This is one of the best questions ever, by the way, Gary, because vanity metrics are exactly that. Like a view is a vanity metric, an impression is a vanity metric, a click is a vanity metric. So the one thing that really matters at the end of the day is what matters to your business. It's the sale, it's the revenue, it's the phone call, whatever that action is at the end. That is what you really want to measure. Like, what is your cost per action? What is your cost per, um, cost per acquisition? Or what's your return on ad spend, right? Are you getting a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 return for every dollar you spend? And so those are the real metrics. That's where the finance people come in. That's literally what you can track as well. That's what matters. Now, everything before that, I would say, yes, they're vanity metrics, but they're also proxies. So understanding how many impressions you have in the market, understanding how many phone calls are coming in, understanding how many clicks you're getting, and what's changing over time in order to drive those end results, that actually matters. And so looking at vanity metrics, not in terms of, oh, wow, I got 1 million views today. Who cares, right? Did you get any sales from those views? That's what matters. And so that 1 million impressions is an important number as it relates to how many sales you got, not necessarily the fact that you just got 1 million impressions, or 1 million views, or whatever it is, right? Like, that's the vanity part of it. I would also say engagement metrics. So likes, shares, saves, um, comments, those types of things are really great to look at because it provides you with sentiment. How are people feeling about that particular piece of content? Uh, are they engaging with it? But again, they're vanity metrics until they relate to the sale on this side. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to relate to a sale, right? It can relate to more brand exposure, which then relates to a sale. So those two things are actually in play. It's the performance marketing side, but it's also the brand marketing side that makes a difference in terms of your overall approach within the marketing landscape. So it's understanding, okay, are people recognizing my brand? Are people commenting around my brand? Do people know who my brand is? And there are tools that can measure that as well. But ultimately, it is about performance. It's about, hey, am I making money at the end of the day? And am I spending less than I'm making?
That's so important. And something you touched on or mentioned, I think is also really interesting to kind of ask another follow-up question. So when you're using paid advertising or even content that you're putting onto socials, right? And you might be getting good sentiment, right? Good engagement with those things, but it may not be leading to a sale. There's a funnel that you're creating, right? Like that's the top of the funnel for people to discover you and what you're offering them to then find themselves probably at your website, maybe at like, if you're an app store, selling in an app store, sending them to the app store or something similar to then get a little bit more information and a deeper call to action that translates to a sale, right? I'm curious, how do you make sense of where the problem is in the funnel to get from discovery to sale, right? Because it could be many different factors at play.
Yeah, and it's not an easy question to answer because it really is different for everyone, right? No two businesses are alike. Um, and, you know, if you went to business school or, studied economics in any kind of way, right, you understand supply and demand, you understand there is a point of there's barriers to entry, right? There are people that are spending a lot more than you on paid ads. And so understanding how to kind of surgically move your way through the landscape so that way you don't have to spend as much, which is why doing those free things that we talked about earlier, like the maps and the local listings, like those things are really important. But what I would say is going from exposure to sale is really about looking at lift. So as you're doing more content and as you're getting good engagement, you really want to look at search lift. Search is still a really good place to go to actually figure out, is my content working in social? Because it's just like if you put content on TV, the TV is not clickable, right? But people then either go to your website or they will search your website or they will search your name or they will do something in search to find you if that's something that they're interested in. So it's really looking at website lift and it's looking at search lift when it comes to content and brand exposure. So that's really how you start to measure that. And the more people you get to your site, it becomes a numbers game, right? How many people do you need to come to your site in order to make one sale? And then you start to back that out, right? And then you can relate it back to content and say, okay, I need to do X pieces of content a week because I'm getting X amount of engagements, which is causing X lift. which is causing Y sales, right? And so it's really kind of it becomes a closed loop attribution system, which is a really nice way to look at what you're putting out there from a content perspective and then what you're getting on the sales side on the back end. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's making sense. Yeah, I I I think it's interesting, yeah, to look again at some different metrics that are showing that engagement in different ways, right? Where, yeah, you can see that all of a sudden your search, people searching for your brand, your product is steadily climbing. So you're developing interest there, and they're trying to find it.
100.
Yeah, and I think too, like, with the number of people arriving at your site and then converting, that's something where, yeah, like, okay, so if we sent 1,000 people to the website and we get one sale for every 1,000, well, that's where you start testing the website as a sales tool, right? A communication tool to see, okay,
Yep.
well, yeah, can we turn that to one sale for every 800 people that come, every 500 people that come, right? And start messing around and then see, yeah, like maybe there is a problem with the website doing its job to, again, communicate and persuade people to get the product, or maybe there's something wrong with the shopping cart or some other system there. But it's always good to, like, yeah, if you're seeing like really high value metrics on, again, like the discovery and the marketing side, the advertising side, that aren't really aligning with the conversion side on your website, then yeah, you can kind of see like there's a discrepancy here and we got to fix this. It's pointing to this problem instead of, like, the front of the funnel. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a really, really good point. I mean, your website is a tool. It really kind of depends upon what business you are, right? If you're an e-com business, you are looking to make a sale, your shopping cart makes a difference, but also the the less barriers to the sale, the better. So, for example, send people to your product page, right? Send people to the page where they can actually buy versus starting them out at your homepage, because then it takes them 3 or 4 clicks to get in and to find what it is that they want, and you're probably going to get a lot of drop off, right? So send them where they need to go. If they've searched on a very specific thing, send them to that very specific thing so they can do the action that you want them to take. They don't need to see everything else up front because they've already decided, because they've searched on it, right? So give them what they want. Don't point them into a place that you feel like they should go. People are great at making their own decisions, and they do make their own decisions with their wallet. And so that's how you know if something is working or it's not working. It's are people buying? But also look at drop off, right? Like maybe there are issues with your cart and you're getting 1,000 people to the cart and people are putting things in their cart, but then nobody's checking out. It's like, wait a minute, something wrong with the cart? Like, is the pricing off? Is something happening within the landscape? Has something happened environmentally that I need to look at? Like, has there been like an economic downturn, or whatever it is? Like, there are a million different variables as to why something works and why it doesn't, but it's a good place to start. And really analyzing the pages of your site, especially as you're getting more and more and more traffic, that's a really good place to start to understand how your site operates within your entire ecosystem.
It's so good. All right, hopefully everyone's taking notes. All right, so let's move on to Emo's question. Imu asks, are today's AI models capable of powering an advertising management platform that can manage, optimize, and automate campaigns across multiple platforms like Meta ads, TikTok ads, and Google ads in one place? That's a tense question. What's your opinion as a marketing advertising person?
love, I love this question because I look at this stuff every single day. And I have not come across one platform that does it all. I have come across platforms that do it all, or they say that they do it all, but there is no substitute for expertise and guidance. And no LLM can give that to you. It will tell you what you want it to, what it wants you to hear, right? Like that's how these models are designed and built. And so once it starts agreeing with you, you actually have to push back and say, please don't agree with me. So unless you know how to work the LLM and you know how to work the model to your best interest, it's really, really hard to do without somebody guiding you along the way. Now, do you need an entire team to do it? Can these models make updates and creative changes and those types of things? Yes. But you still need somebody looking at the data, and you yourself need to look at the data and understand what's going on, and then call in the right people when you need to. Because technology, while it's great, is really no substitute for experience. It really, really isn't. And I have seen this play out over and over again where people, they think they can just hire a platform to do it all, and then they do, and then all of a sudden they're like, I've just spent, $5,000 on this thing and I don't have anything to show for it. And so it's holding somebody, an individual, accountable for that performance is invaluable. It's like, okay, if we're going to leverage this and do this through AI, let's make sure we have an AI expert who knows how to do it and can troubleshoot it and can, figure it out as we go, because new models are being released. People are using older models. People are using newer models. You don't know what's going on the back end of some of these tools. They may promise you the world and then deliver you nothing. So having that guidance and that expertise is really, really important. Now, in the future, who knows, right? Like, you step out in the street tomorrow and get hit by a bus, right? Like, so like nobody knows what the future holds. And nobody knows what kind of regulations will be coming in place, and nobody knows kind of what limitations may be put on some of these models because they're becoming way too advanced. And so I always default back to guidance and expertise. I'm not saying don't test, don't try, don't learn, because you should always test and try and learn. Just be careful with how much you invest in order to do that.
That was amazing advice. So we have a frequent Twitch viewer, Dr. Paxmore. Every time AI comes up, LLMs, uh, they're the voice of reason, saying essentially what you said. Like, you gotta be
Oh,
careful,
that's
not
good. I'm glad I'm echoing
yeah,
the
yeah,
sense.
yeah. You gotta be careful not to trust them. You gotta like, be aware that they're designed to make you feel good. And that too is like, it's interesting, like you said, like they're getting it more advanced, but what I'm seeing and hearing and reading from a lot of research and stuff is that the more most advancements, or most of the advancements that they're demonstrating, is related to how they mask the errors that they have and stupidity that they're feeding to you. Um, and so it's getting more advanced at being manipulative than accurate, which is really scary and plays into like a lot of like outcry for people to want to see more regulations and control over like, what people are doing with AI
Absolutely.
and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you. So I use AI every single day. I do. But I use it in a very strategic way. And then when I get so for example, if somebody sends me a spreadsheet and they're like, please analyze these, 1,000 rows of data, right? I will put in a really sophisticated prompt into an LLM and I'll put that spreadsheet in there, and then I'll get back something. And it's usually wrong. And I know that it's wrong because I've done this for years, right? Like, and that is the difference between somebody who is going, oh, I trust this and what it's coming back with, versus me who's going back and saying, no, 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 no. Like this calculation is right, but the sentiment is wrong because the creative looks like this, and we're driving this to the site, and how would you adjust and fix that? Right. And so I'm going back and forth. I'm having a conversation with it. And then I'm saying, don't screw this up. Right. Like I'm actually telling it that to do that. And so that way it knows that like I am the expert. I'm the person in control and it's not you. And you need to do the things that I'm asking you to do in a way that I want you to do them. And if you're not giving that to me, then I'm going to do it myself, to be quite frank.
Yeah, so important, so important. This kind of plays into, again, like a little bit of what you were talking about, and we're both are talking about in terms of like, those early relationships that you're building. And it's why you want to seek out mentors in very specific fields and roles, and be able to ask them for feedback. Be like, hey, I'm using AI, I'm trying this out. You know, it's not my specialization, but it's yours. Can you just like let me know if this is even close to like correct? And kind of like, get some guidance on that. And this too, if you're building a business where advisory board is super invaluable. Not just having some, names that you can be like, oh, look, we got an advisory board, but actual advisors that have the expertise and specialization to lend you some time to make sure that you're not making the worst mistakes possible, right? Because they've been there, they've done this, and that's what they live and breathe, right? So I think that's amazing, like little add-ons there. We got a question from Eleanor Lee, if I said that correctly. Hopefully. What do you think of Andromeda in meta ads?
Oh, man. Um, so I might not be the best person to ask about this particular one. I can tell you what I think of meta ads. Andromeda, I'm not really kind of up to speed on that particular piece quite yet. So, but I know that meta ads work and they work really well because their algorithm is designed to do that. It's designed to know who you are, it's designed to find you where you are, and serve you what you want to see based upon that advertiser's content. Um, but it's also something that needs to be adjusted and played with and um, optimized in a way that is incredibly effective. Um, but I, I I'm gonna actually kind of go back and look at that particular component. So, but if you want to share, I'm happy to comment on that.
Okay, so yeah, feel free to provide some follow-up context and follow-up questions, and yeah, we'll get to it. In the
Oh, excellent.
meantime, Finesto asks, I'm building FlagPass as a free open source cited atlas of global citizenship and residence routes. The long-term model is trust-led. Become the place people check mobility rules, then earn from referrals to local advisors, not from selling visas and product. What should be my primary growth system for the next 12 months? So paid ads, if any, uh, or excuse me, for the next 12 months or so, paid ads, if any, only to amplify trust, not replace it. And yeah, so it's launched. They already have a website, but it sounds like it's very early stage. So yeah, what do you feel is like the best thing to do at an early stage to start building up this momentum?
Can I play this back? So, are you looking for advice around um, building momentum around an early stage website? Or are you looking for a specific way to grow a product or service? What does the website do specifically? I guess is my first question.
Let's take a quick look. Just posted a link. Look at it. Okay. This is a very confusing website. Yeah, Finesto, we're gonna have to like need you to expand on this a bit because this is definitely as far as a website goes, as a product to arrive at, it's this feels like a product that is hyper engineered, right? And it's expecting people to just arrive at it and understand what to do. Um, but unfortunately, most people are, they don't share your brain. They don't understand your experiences and methodology of how you arrived at designing this and putting this out into the world. And they need a tutorial, right? It's like opening up a super complex 4X strategy game, like say Stellaris, and
Oh man.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just get right going and know exactly what to do in that game. There's like a long tutorial. There's like a whole little tutorial campaign, right? And so I'm getting vibes like that from this website, and that's not like a knock on you. It's a common, you know, uh, lesson that many founders need to learn in terms of how they showcase their product and connect the product to the people that they want to serve. Um, yeah. So Vanessa, tell us, I guess, yeah, if you can in the chat, like real quickly, like what's the number one goal? You said like it sounds like yeah, you want to build trust with this, but what's the core message and goal for engaging in marketing or advertising at this stage, I suppose. While we wait for Vanessa to add a little bit of context, though, yeah, there's two questions that I wanted to circle back on that kind of build on other things. So you mentioned newsletters and using that as a means to continuously be at top of mind with, the community that you're trying to engage with, your customers, clients, and so forth. You already said not to overload them. So in my experience too, less is more. It's so much better to have more time in between sending another newsletter so they don't feel like you're annoying them and not, just filling up their inbox. But once they get that newsletter, how do you design a newsletter that is engaging and exciting and ultimately, enjoyable and beneficial to them to open up? Like, do you focus on certain stories? Do you certain like, share wins? Do you ask them questions that are engaging? How do you build that?
Some of the best newsletters that I get personally are the ones that are they provide me value outside of what that product does. So, for example, like I get a newsletter. I think it's either week. I think it's biweekly actually, where it provides me with some life advice. Right? It's like take a second to take a breath. Right? Go out and take a walk. Clear your mind. Those types of things are things that I personally feel like I need to be reminded of because I just tend to work, 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 work. And so it's like it resonates with me personally. And then how does that particular lesson tie into what it is that you do specifically? And then that helps to build the awareness and keep them warm, right? The idea is not necessarily to get a sale out of a newsletter. The idea behind a newsletter is to provide value, to keep them warm, to keep them engaged, to keep them excited. And then over time, you're building trust. And then from that trust, you're building a sale. So it is we call it a drip campaign because it really is like a faucet drip. It's how many drips do you need for it to make an impact? And that's literally what you need to do. And then your newsletter becomes, and it has a life of its own. People really want it. The other newsletters that I love are things like I get a newsletter called Uh-oh. I'm like, what? What do you mean, uh-oh? Right? Like, what is that? So I love to open up that newsletter and see what the weekly uh-oh is. Right. And it will be something related to the service that they do, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just completely out of the blue. It's like, um, yeah, Fable was released and then it was pulled back, and why was it pulled back, and all the various different. Now we're talking about AI, and you do AI, and so it's like, we don't tend to run into these particular things because of X, Y, and Z, but they did, and look at where they are right now. And like, so just be engaging, be funny, ask questions. I always find that posing a question within a piece of content is something that is a really valuable tool to use because it gets people thinking. It's like, hey, what would you do in this situation? Right? Or propose a story or propose a scenario, or, um, you know, provide a fact that you have that nobody else has. Did you know that, 98% of the US population does, I don't know, uses tissues, right? Like it's so random. It's so weird, but all of a sudden you're like, yes, of course I knew that. What else do you have to say? Right? So like get creative, be a storyteller, be somebody who can weave through, and don't overdo it, because then now all of a sudden you're cheesy. But like every now and then toss something in there, or maybe that, that's your thing and it becomes a life of its own. So it's really cool to play around with those types of experiences, um, if that's helpful.
No, it's definitely
Those are my
helpful.
favorites. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know
no, I
about you.
like that. It's also touching on the theme of humanity, right? And that's where the storytelling's about, and how you're connecting with them, but also the questions you're asking. And the stories are making it easy to resonate with the humanity that you all share, right? As a company, as a founder, a brand, and then them, the people that you're serving. And yeah, I mean, I do enjoy I enjoy authentic questions that are fun and deeply, linked to the content itself and the story that I was just exposed to. Like I watched I'm trying to get better at playing Magic the Gathering, and there's this YouTuber, uh Tolarian Community College, the professor, and every video ends with, "Now I want to hear from you," right? About, this very specific topic that he was just like, either leading a little bit of like a crash course on, or sharing his opinion on with the game, or Magic as a whole, or game mechanics, the industry as a whole. So yeah, I'm a big fan of those types of things too. It just reminds you that you're all sharing the same experience as a human being. And yeah,
100%.
with all the AI
You know,
and spam and scams, it's all that stuff is like the complete opposite of human connection and what matters. And it's so refreshing to get the opposite. Yeah.
yeah, but also know your audience too, right? If your audience is a group of engineers, right, and their job is to solve problems every single day, what is something that's going to lighten their load, right? What is something that's going to take their mind off of what they're doing on a daily basis, that is then going to pull them back into what you're trying to do? And so, you know, humor is a universal language. I love it. I think that it can be played with, and you can do all sorts of cool things. Tell a joke. It could be a super cheesy joke, but like, if you're messaging engineers, like what is the an engineering joke, right? Like what are people going to get that are going to pull them into your world? Because that's really what you want them to do, is become really tied to who you are and who your brand is. And if they like getting your content, because let's face it, like I get probably 60 newsletters a week. Which are the ones that I open, right? So, and it's an incredibly effective form of content creation and engagement and even lead magnets, but you have to be different than everybody else that's out there. And so, like, there is a podcast called I Know a Guy. It's like, how many people know? Like, I know a guy, right? You know a guy, Gary. Like everybody knows a guy. It's like, oh, let me go check this out, right? Like, who does he know? And then how can I learn from that? Like, so even just an engaging name or a title is a really effective form of getting your message into the market.
I love it because like yeah, I mean like that's like his first impression, right? And the first impression with I know a guy, it's like, oh, I know a guy. Well, I know what that means. I know what that represents. So it's setting certain expectations for what's going to happen when I engage with that content, right? And that's where,
Yeah.
yeah, the beauty of branding and marketing and messaging and storytelling is, especially when you lean back on what we're talking about first in regards to like mission, values, the culture, your culture statement, what you want to represent and all that, and making sure that everything you strategize, you plan, you do represents those things, it makes it so much easier too for the newsletter to embody those and speak to the right to the people in the right way that you're targeting and aligning with. It's a matchmaking game. It's all a matchmaking game, right? So yeah.
It's all a matchmaking game. And actually that brings me back to Andromeda. So as we've been talking, I kind of jumped in there and did a little bit of research. This is not a new strategy, by the way. And as they're presenting it as a new strategy, is not a new strategy. So essentially, what Andromeda does is it takes a ton of creative and it's creative testing, right? It cycles through creative and it tries to match you directly with the creative that resonates the most with you on an individual basis, right? This is something that they have been doing forever. They're just putting a different label on it. And they're allowing you more assets within each individual cluster or group with which to then seed your audience, because everybody does respond to something differently. It's why personalization works so well. It's because it's actually speaking to the things that you care about. And so the more pieces of creative you can have within specifically Meta, and I've seen this work before because when I was at a company called iView, it was all personalized video. We would literally be uploading 20 pieces of creative into one ad group. And the system would then cycle through all of those creatives and figure out which one would match with somebody else. And so this is essentially that, because they realize that having more assets actually works really well. So I'm a fan of the way that they have proposed this same concept that has existed for a while.
That's good. That's good extra insight to know and think about for sure. Okay, Finesso added some more context. Okay, so what they built, Flag Paths, is basically a free open map of real citizenship and residence options worldwide, backed by primary sources, not blogs or brokers. So people building a life with more geographic freedom can see what paths actually exist, what they rest on, and what changed before they spend money or trust bad advice. Basically, global mobility facts are free and public, but the industry hides or gets them wrong. I'm just building this project out as a free hobby project that maps real citizenship and residence routes back to their official sources. The goal for the marketing and advertising is to get people to use the free atlas to look up real routes with sources instead of being a sales pitch. Secondary to me is building a community through mobility updates. There's no checkout step because I'm not trying to sell on the site. If it ever makes money, that comes later from referrals once people already trust the data. So yeah, hopefully that adds a little more. What would you recommend for those goals at this stage or very early stage?
Yeah, I mean, that is a very, very specific product. I mean, I'm assuming when you're talking about routes, you're talking about like specific like ways to get to different places. And is not necessarily digitally, or maybe it is digitally.
I think in the
Uh,
context, real quick, I think in the context, looking at the site and the
yeah,
comments a bit, I think it's more about the routes of I'm currently, living in America, but I would love to move to Portugal and be part of that startup scene over there. And I'm gonna go all in building startup ecosystems in Portugal. How do I become a citizenship of Portugal and find my way there and really like understand what limitations there are for entry and moving around within that territory of that state and whatever ally nations they may have. I think that's more the context of it, if that helps. And feel free to
Yeah,
correct me, Finesto, if I got that wrong.
it's again, I think it's about knowing who your audience is at that point, right? It's like it's okay, who wants to move to Portugal, right? Like who are the people in the U.S. who number one are building things, who are maybe disgruntled with what's happening within the U.S., right? And then where are they looking to go? What are their different options? And building a system that is valuable for them as a resource. There are a couple of sites that do this, like International something. I can't remember what the name of it is, but like it is a really effective thing for U.S. citizens who want to move outside of the U.S. Provides them with guidance and resources, and a lot of it is paid and it's behind a paywall, but um, it provides you with valuable information on how to do that. And so again, it's knowing your audience and then putting out content that drives them to that resource. So what I would do if I were you is I would post a ton of Instagram videos and a ton of TikTok videos and a ton of YouTube shorts that really say, hey, looking to move? Hey, looking to build? Hey, looking at, right? Like things like that, that's super short, under 15 seconds, that can drive people to that particular experience. And then leverage those paid platforms with which to target individuals who are looking to make a move, right? Or in different life stages or those types of things. Again, this is very, very specific guidance, right? Like on a very specific product. And so, in order to really provide you with sage advice, I'd really, really need to dig into what the product is, who you're looking to target, what messages you've currently delivered, what's been working, what hasn't been working. Is this conceptual? Has this, like at what stage you're at? There's so many different variables that play in that I'd really kind of need to get under the hood to provide you with some really good um, guidance on next steps in terms of getting more people to experience what it is you're building.
I think that is also great advice. Sorry, great advice on its own as well, because I mean, this is a common thing I see often, and I suffer from this from time to time. It's trying to be too broad, right? And when, I love to hear your feedback and advice on this. What's the benefit of niching down, especially when you're early to, building a product, a service, a company, versus trying to service a wider, again, gamut of potential customers, clients, users? How do you benefit from being really honed in?
A focus breeds success. It's honestly, it is something that has been said over time, but it is true. Now, how you get to focus is potentially broad, right? It's who's going to resonate with this particular message. If you don't know, right? If you're not sure who your audience might be, it might, you might test different audiences and see where your message is landing. But once you figure that out, narrow in on that audience and then really understand who they are from a cohort perspective. So that way you can broadly message them in a very specific way. This is a very odd way to answer that question, but it is, like it kind of makes sense in terms of like be as specific as you can without alienating the people that are attracted to that particular product or service. So it is a balance. It's always a balance, but focus does breed success. but understanding who your audience is probably the most important thing that you can do. So that way you can focus.
Yeah, no, I like that. And again, it kind of brings up another recurring theme, not just with you, but every other mentor that we have sharing time with us. It's a series of science experiments, right? You have an assumption, a hypothesis, and you need to figure out how to test those and see what's right, what's wrong, and then contextualize not only what you're doing and how you're doing to run that test in the scope of what your goals are, but then how do you properly analyze that? And you touched on that earlier too, in relation to vanity metrics and substantial metrics, right? And knowing what matters. So I think it's really important that you shared that, and hopefully, yeah, like, that helps everyone that's listening along. And Fenesto, yeah, like you've got a very broad sweeping product that can service a lot of different types of people, but start figuring out who you think is going to be most excited to learn about that and get the most, again, enjoyment and benefits and value out of it, even if you're not selling it at this stage. But start to define who those potential target customer profiles are, user profiles, and start testing and see who's resonating with the messaging that's specifically for them, written for them, right? Andrew, I just looked at the time. This has been so much fun. I can't believe we've gone over 17 minutes already. I deeply appreciate you being so generous with your time and the
Of
incredible, like,
course.
yeah, answers and questions and feedback and advice that you've given. I definitely love to have you back because you've been an absolute gem. Um, Before we
Thank you.
close
Appreciate
everything,
that. It's been fun.
I'm so glad to hear that. Before we close down, though, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to share with the community? Anything coming up that you think be good for people to be aware of? Anything?
I mean, so look, if you're looking for marketing advice, feedback, feel free to reach me. You can, use, it goes directly to me, but contact@foxydigital.ai. Um, we're tend to focus right now on the professional services space, but we're also doing travel, and my experience spans Fortune 100 companies. I'm just taking that experience to small and medium-sized businesses. So if you do have a need, let me know, and I'm happy to get involved, happy to get my team involved, and give you some good thoughts, some good advice, guidance. Maybe we can work together. Who knows? But um, happy to be a resource.
Man, again, like, it's amazing. Like, you've done a great job, Andrew. This has been very fun and
Thank
very
you.
over time. So yeah, thank you. And I appreciate everyone's questions and helping out. And yeah, a little bit shyer group in general, but I definitely, yeah, thank you, the people that have been brave and bold to ask questions and be a little bit vulnerable. And I hope you got some good advice and value out of this. And with that, it's almost the weekend, so make sure you got some fun stuff planned and have some fun. You too, Andrew. You work too much.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I do.
You said that. You said it earlier.
I True. You're right. You're right. You're right. I need to have fun. It's true. I
Yeah.
will. I will do it.
Good. Good.
So.
Excellent. Okay, with that, everyone, have a great rest of the weekend. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of this. All right.